You don't lose money because you are unlucky. You lose money, relationships, and peace because you keep walking around with your life unprotected, as if everyone around you is automatically decent. And the most dangerous part is this. You think the danger is obvious. You think greed announces itself with a villain voice. It doesn't. It wears friendship. Here's the truth no school teaches. Keeping your assets secret is not about being rich and mysterious. It's about surviving human nature. The hidden self in most people is not made of pure intentions. It's made of primitive survival instincts that flare up the second they smell a threat to their own identity. In this video, I'm going to show you how wealth triggers envy, how envy becomes sabotage, and why silence is often the first line of defense for both your money and your mind. Let's start with the simplest survival rule. People treat money like air. They don't always talk about it, but it governs how they breathe, how they judge, and how safe they feel. In a group, there's always an invisible hierarchy. Some people pretend they don't care about status, but the body doesn't lie. When someone's income rises, their presence changes, their tone changes, their spending choices change. Even if they don't say a word, the atmosphere shifts because now the rest of the group has to rewrite the story of where they stand, and that's where the primitive part comes in. But the primitive mind doesn't think in fairness. It thinks in threat. It thinks in survival. If you have something, the primitive mind asks, why them and not me? Not as a polite question, as a biological irritation. That irritation can turn into contempt. Contempt can turn into manipulation, and manipulation is rarely direct. It's usually disguised as helpfulness, concern, humor, advice, and we should talk. When you keep assets visible, you hand out coordinates. You make it easy for people to decide what role they want to play in your life. Some will become supporters, yes, but many will become accountants of your value. They'll measure your worth by what you have. They'll calculate what you owe them. They'll decide whether you are generous enough to deserve affection. That is not love. That is a contract written in their head. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed how some people get strangely close right after you start doing well? Not gradual closeness. Not admiration that respects your boundaries. I mean, closeness with an appetite. They suddenly remember you need help. They suddenly have a friend who can invest with you. They suddenly want to travel together. They suddenly want to be included. They start using your name the way marketers use a brand. This is not random. It's pattern recognition. Money is not only a resource, it's a magnet. It attracts predators, and it also attracts the worst version of people who were previously dormant. Even if someone loves you, their envy might still exist. Envy doesn't require hatred. It requires comparison. It requires the belief that you shouldn't have what you have, and the more you share, the more you train their comparison machine. You teach them what targets to imagine. You teach them what you are capable of giving. You also teach them what you might be forced to give under pressure. That's how the hidden self becomes dangerous. It turns secrecy into control and control into leverage. Let's get specific, because vague warnings never protect anyone. Imagine you buy a new car. You don't brag. You post one photo. You mention the price casually. You say you got a good deal. Within days, a friend who used to be neutral starts acting like you're obligated to them. They ask for favors that don't match your past relationship. They bring up their own financial struggles in a way that feels rehearsed. They say things like, I just need a little help to get through this month. They don't ask for investment advice. They ask for access. Access to your resources, access to your stability. Then you refuse, not aggressively, just with a boundary. And what happens? The mood changes, the jokes get colder, the eye contact gets shorter. Suddenly they're busy. You become less convenient. You stop being a friend and start being a ledger. Some people will call this being dramatic. They will tell you you're overthinking, but this is the hidden mechanism. The primitive mind hates injustice, even when it's imaginary. In their internal story, you owe them because they feel entitled to continuity. They are attached not to your character, but to your role. When your role changes, their identity feels violated. So they retaliate softly. They don't need to punch you. They can poison your reputation. They can sabotage opportunities. They can spread stories that make you look less trustworthy. And the sabotage is often creative. It can look like advice that subtly undermines you. It can look like introductions that quietly waste your time. It can look like accidental delays when you're trying to close something important. It can look like emotional manipulation. Suddenly you're the selfish one. Suddenly you're the ungrateful one. Suddenly you're too proud. That's why keeping assets secret is not paranoia. It's risk management. It's refusing to provide data that feeds other people's fantasies, because the fantasy is what they act on. Now I want to address the most naive belief people carry. Many people think family and close friends are safe. They think blood equals immunity. They think loyalty will override desire. They think affection is a shield. It can be, sometimes, but not when money becomes a measurement tool, not when wealth forces an identity negotiation. Here's the reality. Love and primitive instinct don't cancel each other. They coexist. If someone is insecure and you become prosperous, their insecurity doesn't evaporate. It migrates. It finds new expression. It can become moral judgment. It can become controlling behavior. It can become pressure disguised as care. When someone has a need they won't admit, they look for a way to meet it. If you are the only person who can meet it, you become the supply line. They don't say it out loud because they would feel ashamed, but their actions say it. They start requesting. They start hinting. They start creating guilt storms, and you will recognize the guilt storm if you pay attention. It sounds like gratitude mixed with expectations. It sounds like, after all I've done for you. It sounds like, I just want what's best for you. It sounds like you don't understand the situation. It sounds like, let's not make things complicated. It sounds like pressure that pretends to be kindness. Then, the most brutal part. If you keep refusing to give them access to your money, you will eventually trigger their true face, not with a scream, with withdrawal, with coldness, with passive aggression, with subtle sabotage, with emotional distance. This is the dark truth. Many people do not betray you because they are evil. They betray you because they are wounded and they don't know how to regulate their feelings. Their envy becomes a coping mechanism. Their greed becomes a form of revenge. They take what they can because they cannot tolerate the emotional discomfort of losing status. And yes, there are also people who simply want to exploit you, period. But even with them, the pattern is the same. They want to know how much. They want to know what kind. They want to know where it sits. They want to know what you can be pressured into sharing. That's why secrecy matters. Every time you reveal details, you reduce uncertainty for them. And predators love certainty. Now let's talk about the illusion that transparency builds trust. People say, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. That phrase is for naive children and for people who want to control you. Adults know something else. Trust is built through boundaries, not through confessions. A mature person doesn't treat every private detail as a right. A mature person decides what information serves the relationship. Wealth information rarely serves relationships in its raw form. It serves your ego to share it, not necessarily the health of your bond. When you share your assets, you invite other people to treat you like a resource. And resources attract opportunists. That's not a moral failure on your part. That's biology and psychology. Think of it like this. When you announce you have food, you don't just invite friends, you also invite the hungry. Some of the hungry are honest, some are desperate, some are dangerous. But you don't know which is which until it's too late. Secrecy buys you time. Secrecy buys you observation. Secrecy lets you see who respects you when they cannot calculate your value. There is a reason wealthy people that survive long-term rarely display every detail. It's not because they are better people, it's because they understand incentives. They understand that the social world is not a therapy group. It's a marketplace of needs. Everyone is selling something. Attention, loyalty, influence, access, approval. If you want a micro story, here's one I've seen over and over. A person finally gets financial stability. They land a better job. They start earning more. They tell a close circle. At first, everyone celebrates. Then comes the weird phase. People begin to ask questions that don't help anyone. They ask about how much you make. They ask about where you put your money. They ask about what you invest in. They ask with smiles, but the eyes are calculating. Then one day they ask for a small loan or a quick favor. It's always described as temporary. It always feels urgent. And if you say no, the relationship becomes tense. The person who got stable thought they were being generous with information, but their generosity triggered other people's entitlement scripts. Once entitlement is activated, the relationship is no longer about mutual respect. It becomes about fairness based on their internal math. And their math can be twisted. They might think you owe them because they helped you once, or because they suffered in your hardship with you, or because they believe your success is partly theirs because they once gave you advice. That's the hidden self. It's the part that wants to believe the world runs on shared credit. When credit is denied, resentment grows. Resentment needs an outlet. Money is a perfect outlet. Money is also a perfect excuse. So if you want to rise, stop giving the world your numbers. Numbers are not neutral. Numbers invite manipulation. Numbers invite envy. Numbers invite people to try to renegotiate your identity. Now let's get deeper, because this isn't only about others. Secrecy also protects you from becoming addicted to validation. When you disclose assets, you train yourself to measure worth through reactions. You start expecting congratulations. You start expecting respect. You start interpreting silence as betrayal and attention as love. That is a trap. Your hidden self gets shaped by the audience you feed. If you keep showing your wealth, people respond to the wealth, not to you. Eventually, your nervous system learns to crave that response. And then when you are not rewarded, you feel threatened. You feel exposed. You feel like you are losing value. You become easier to control. Because if someone can threaten your image, they can influence your behavior. That's why the truly dangerous lie is not that others will be cruel. The dangerous lie is that showing everything will make you safe. It won't. It makes you predictable. It makes you controllable. There's also a second layer of danger most people ignore. Your relationships become conditional. They might still love you, but love gets contaminated by economics. You become the person who is useful, not the person who is cherished. Over time, you start building friendships that revolve around your capacity to help. Then even when you're kind, you feel resentful because the love was never clean, and if you're honest, you already sense it. You've probably felt a subtle shift when you shared something big. You've probably noticed people become warmer when you talk about success, but colder when you need emotional support. You've probably felt that some people only remember you when there's something they can gain. They don't say it directly, they just make your life feel like a transaction. Secrecy is one way to separate connection from capture. When you keep things private, you allow people to relate to your character. You test whether their kindness survives without access to your resources. If someone withdraws when they don't know your wealth, it's not a loss, it's a diagnosis. It reveals their foundation was never love, it was strategy. Now, I need you to face something else. The primitive instinct that makes people envy is the same instinct that makes you overshare. Because if you share constantly, you are chasing relief. You are chasing the emotional comfort of being seen as successful. You are chasing the dopamine of external confirmation. That relief is short. The consequences last. Oversharing is not an innocent habit. It's a self-soothing mechanism. It's how the anxious part of you tries to calm down. It says, if people know I'm doing well, they will respect me. They will stop judging me. They won't abandon me. But respect earned through spectacle is fragile. Abandonment still happens. Judgment still happens, just in a different form. And then you blame yourself. You say, why are people so fake? But the better question is, why did I give them the map they needed to fake me? Your money is not only money, it's information, it's proof, it's status, it's a spotlight. If you turn the spotlight toward yourself, you invite both admiration and predation. And the predators are rarely obvious. They are quiet, they are polite, they are close. So what do you do instead? You build privacy like a lifestyle, not like a panic. You stop narrating your life like a reality show. You stop explaining every purchase. You stop answering income questions like it's small talk. You stop confirming rumors. You stop giving people permission to measure you. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You'll say, but if I keep secrets, I'm playing games. No. Secrets can be selfish, yes. But the secrets we're talking about here are protective. Protective silence is not manipulation. Protective silence is a boundary around risk. A boundary is not deception. A boundary is choosing what information remains yours because it costs too much to share. You're not harming people by refusing to discuss your assets. You're refusing to create a dynamic where people treat you as a target. And there's another uncomfortable truth. Some people don't deserve transparency. Not because they're villains, because the relationship has not earned the level of access you're offering. Trust is earned through consistent character over time. It's not earned through proximity. It's not earned through childhood memories. And it's not earned through I'm your friend speeches. The moment someone's curiosity about your wealth starts to feel transactional, treat that as a warning sign. The moment advice about investing turns into pressure about borrowing, warning sign. The moment people become unusually interested in your future plans, warning sign. The moment they ask questions in a tone that sounds like they're preparing their next move, warning sign. You might not be able to name the exact danger, but your body knows. Your stomach tightens. You feel a weird